Are we live? We're live. Hey, welcome to the studio. Pleasure to have your company here. Please let me know if you can hear me. It sounds like my microphone is way too loud. I'm blowing out here. Let me see if I can adjust the settings here. Why is it so high? Let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me. I'm blowing out here. Let me see if I can adjust the settings here. Why is it so high? There we go. There we go. You can hear me. AS Fine Art. Thank you so much. Excellent. Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you. Now, it's a little dark on my screen. Am I too dark here? Did I get my lighting wrong? I don't know. Anyway, it's early. What can I say? 7 a.m., but I was here at 4:30. And there's one thing. I tell you what, if you're not drinking this, then you just don't know. Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll stop that. I'll stop that. I talk too much about butter in the coffee. Yes, legit, that's what I do. I stir a nice, healthy spoonful of butter in my coffee. Butter and cream, 2 shots of espresso. Oh, nothing like it. And so you know what time it is. We're going to do some painting today, and I'm really excited because we're going to be starting something new. We're going to be starting something little. I'm crammed here. You can see my cameras are right here. I'm in this little tiny space, huge studio, but this little tiny space we've carved out here to talk on the live stream. And today, what we're going to be doing is a tree study on an 8x10, and this is kind of lining up for a bigger project down the track. And so I'll be talking to you about that in due course, but for now, I'm just going to knock out this study. So the thumbnail might have been a little misleading because I can't show you what the live stream is going to be about because we haven't painted it yet. So we just used some trees. Before we get into this, by the way, I want to shout some people out. A couple of newbies here. Welcome to my newbies. I saw somebody, my goodness, the live chat is blowing up. Who was here this morning? I want to shout out to Ron. Ron was first in class this morning. Well done, Ron, top prize. And then shout out to Anna Graham. Where are you, Anna? Coffee time again, she says, with butter. You know it, Anna, you know it. Shout out to Scott, and shout out to Kimberly. Kimberly is a new member. She says, Kimberly Halton. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that last name. New member to Tisch Academy. This is my first time watching the live stream. Welcome. And Wim55 is new here as well. So if you're one of my newbies, then please do let me know. The way we do here is basically you type in some capital letters here in the live chat, and that helps me see it. So here's what I want you to do. If you're new, type in 3 capital N's for new, and let us know where you're from. And if you've got like some weird, handle, give us your name too. That helps me as well. Like, don't have me calling you Saxophone Master 55 or whatever. Like give me your name, Jerry. Okay. And that way I can shout you out and say good day. Now, my OGs already know what to do. If you're an OG, hit me up in the live chat. But this is what we're here to do. We're here to talk about oil painting. We're in class now. We're going to have a good time. And what we're here to do is answer those questions and talk shop and really break this down in such a way that you have some actionable techniques. Hopefully you get a little something to plug in and come away with something from each and every one of these live streams. That's the whole point here. So if you have a question, type in QQQ, 3 capital Q's. That will help me see it. I've got Jim in the house, a little early for Vanessa. I understand she's probably not awake yet. Are my Aussies in the house? Have I got any of my Aussies in the house? If I do, I would be very, very impressed. Nettie? Is Nettie in the house? Is Daniel Beresford in the house? It's like 4 in the morning for them. I was here at 4:30, so what's your excuse? Hey, get your coffee and your Vegemite sandwiches and jump on in. So here we go. Oh, lots of Tina Smith. Welcome, Tina. Welcome, Dan. Welcome, Patrick. Steve, welcome. Oh, fantastic. Mark and Kimberly and Vicky and Kathy and Leon and Gigi and oh, wow. Carrie, newbie as well from the last 2 weeks, she says. My goodness, Mark Graham. So N. For new. That helps me see it. Shout out to Claire, Marcel, welcome. Can't use solvents. QQQ, can't use solvents. Mark, expand on that question for me. Let's get that answered. What do you mean you can't use solvents? I tend to shy away from solvents as well. And there are some solvents and volatiles in some of the materials I'm going to be using today. We can talk about that. But with good studio practice, we can protect ourselves. I want to be around for a long time, all right? I want to keep painting for as long as I can. I do take my health seriously, despite what people think. They're like, well, why are you throwing butter in your coffee? Well, look into it. And it tastes really fantastic too. Anyway, that New Zealand grass-fed butter, am I right? That's the only painting medium you need is butter in your coffee, that's it. So we'll talk a little bit about solvents. That's a great topic, Mark. That's a great topic. But specifically, what can I answer about the solvents for you? Let me, before we get into these questions, so I'll just, Eileen, I'm going to get back to you, and Balsam, we'll get back to you as well. And Marley's Fine Art, we're going to get onto that question as well. So I'll come back to those. Again, if I forget your question, don't worry, you spam me in the chat. Let me talk to you about what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to do a tree study. I got a special project that I'm working on. And one thing that I have to do as an artist is I have to study, and it's not just practice with sketching and, you know, lots of reference and all that. I mean, that helps, but for every painting, like every big project that I'm doing, I have to break it down into smaller chunks sometimes and actually focus on individual elements and go, okay, what am I doing with the rocks? What am I doing with the light? What am I doing with the color combinations? What am I doing with my composition? The digital process really helps. This is more analog. What we're going to be doing today is just kind of getting our head around this. Very simple scene, very beautiful. Spring has sprung here in Lawrence. Let me see if I've done this right, and I'm sharing the right screen. Ah, there we go. Very good, very good. So this is very typical of like what is like 100, 200 yards from the studio. As soon as we leave the studio on the main street and you blink and you're out of Lawrence, right? And you start heading down the Beaumont Highway towards the Beaumont Bridge, it opens up into this beautiful pasture land. And so you get these streams, and there's willows through the streams, and sometimes, and right now with spring, we got a lot of spring lambs around. I'm not going to add any lambs to this one, but they're around. Squint, you might be able to see them there in the distance. But I'm taking photographs like this, and I'm kind of thinking about a particular scene that I'm going to put together. Now, I have to be very careful what I say here, because there might be a special someone watching whose birthday is coming up, that I'm doing this study for her painting, and I don't want her to, she already knows, Rachel already knows, but if you're watching now, honey, please tune off, okay? All right, my wife catches these live streams. She watches them with our boy Hugo. She's watching from home. So go watch another one, another time. Don't hang around here. You'll give it away. But let me show you some of these other photographs. I went with my buddy Mike down the road, and here's some of the pictures that I got. And so I'm thinking, I'm studying, I'm working out a composition. I'm so inspired right now by Dutch masters, but in a completely different vein. I'm also really inspired by Alfred Munnings and Lucy Kemp Welch. And I'm thinking about livestock, horses, cows, sheep, donkeys, you name it. There's something really beautiful about the humble farm scene and this kind of landscape. So what I particularly, and so we got a few things to talk about here. And also I got a great comment from Nancy, I believe it was, on a critique video. And Nancy absolutely hit the nail on the head. And this was Robert's Mountain critique video. I know the questions are going to be piling up. I'll get back to you in the live chat. We won't miss any questions. What is NNN, Philip said? Philip's NNN is for new. That must mean that you're new here, so welcome. I want everybody to type in, if you're new, type in 3 capital N's in the chat so I can say hello. And welcome to Tisch Academy, welcome to Livestream. How are you enjoying the Academy so far? I hope you're really having a good time and you're learning something. That's what it's all about. Nancy had a great comment, and she absolutely hit the nail on the head. Let's go back to me for a second here. There we go. And I don't need. There we go. And the comment was, Look, this is all well and good, this critique video, but what would be really great is if you could kind of state more of the why, and forgive me, Nancy, if I'm framing this wrong, but go more into the why you're doing this, why you're going in a particular artistic direction. What is the objective? I'm a huge fan, and if you read the last Paint FOMO, I'm a huge fan of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's I kind of adapted that and thought, well, this is perfect for artists. So I called that article, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Artists. And there's one of those habits, which is begin with the end in mind. And so whenever we're thinking about our scene, let me pull up my reference here, just a wee image here. Let's pull this up while we're talking about it. So whenever we're thinking about our scene, what I think about here is, what do I love? What am I responding to in this image? So many of us so often will grab just a photo out of the reference file and we'll go, oh wow, okay, that looks cool, I'll paint that. Now that's a great start, but we need to tease out a little bit more. So what I do, beginning with the end in mind, I start thinking about those things that I love. What do I really love here? And the reason I use a strong word like love, and I mean that, is because I want that emotional attachment to what it is I'm painting. And so my hope is, doesn't happen every time, but my hope is that that love and that care for what I'm doing comes through in the final article. Okay, the final product. And so I think our clients can see that. I think our viewers can see that. They can sense that. They can sense when you're all in. So I start from that place. What do I love here? So let's have a look at this image. Now, you might not love it, but for me, it kind of taps into this idea of home. This is where I live. I feel at home here in this type of landscape, and I identify with the critters that I'm going to eventually be painting in the final painting. And so I'm starting to think, like, I love that light. I love the direct overhead light here. I generally don't paint like midday sunny scenes, but the thing about this is that this willow tree and this stream provides a moment of rest, a moment of let's call it relaxation for the animals. You often will see the livestock on a hot sunny day park themselves under these trees. And it's a beautiful moment. We can identify with the subject in that way. So I love the light, and I love the interplay of light and shade, that dappled light. I love the water and the reflective quality of that water and the transparency in that water. So as I'm starting to say this, I'm kind of fleshing out that idea, beginning with the end in mind. These are things that have got to end up in that composition. All right, we won't carry on too long, but that's the main thing. When you pulling something out of your reference file, don't just go, oh, it's cool, I'll paint that, I'll copy the photo. Think more in terms of that end result. What is it you're really trying to say here, and try and plug that in. And hopefully that comes through. But I like to start off from that emotional standpoint because I do think it comes through in the final article. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? All right, so what I'm going to paint here is a study of this tree. And I want to create a bit of a habitat for the main subject. Again, in case she's watching, she's probably watching. I don't want to give it away. If you are watching, my love, please hit us up in the live chat. Rachel's always keeping an eye on me. All right, so let's go ahead here and just answer those questions that I missed. So, Eileen, referring to last week's portraiture, do you know the work of Raphael Hymans? I do not. Okay, cool, awesome. Hit me up in the direct messages and show me some pictures, Eileen. Why is your palette all taped now? My palette is just taped because that's where I need to zoom in to get my camera, which we will just organize this now. So here we go. So I know exactly where to zoom in to get my camera just right. And now that I'm here, let's go ahead and go here. Ha-ha! We have the means. Look at that. So, working here on an 8x10 canvas, you can see the reference. I'm just using the one piece of reference here, and we need to start to sketch up. Before we do, you might notice that my paint palette here is in a bit of a state, and we need to freshen up some paint. I was working on a very exciting project this morning. I got in, the oil started flowing, and I was just like, oh man, I can't wait to share this with you. So you might have seen, I posted some stories up on my Instagram, and that was of a photo shoot of a horse and foal, a foal that was just born on a property not too far from the center of town. Little drive out there, photographed this horse and foal, and now I've got a series of paintings that I'm doing of horses and foals. Can't wait. So a little bit of a baby wipe on there. Again, these have got a bit of a mineral oil content to them, and so it really helps melting that oil paint. I can't get this brand anymore here in this country. They just don't stock them anymore. But if they do have mineral oil, they're great for cleaning up that oil paint. You see how fast that works. You just want to make sure you wipe off with a paper towel all of the residue, because that will affect the drying time of your paint. Our paint will not dry if we don't get that all off. So I'm going to keep the palette of colors here because this is pretty much my standard palette now. We're just going to freshen up a wee bit. Okay, so here we've got, starting from the far left, we've got burnt umber, beg your pardon, raw umber, then we got burnt umber, then we've got transparent red oxide, then transparent yellow oxide, which needs to be freshened up a little bit. It's formed a skin, get a little fresh pile out here. We got some raw sienna, which I'm absolutely loving. It's more or less replaced yellow ochre for me. It's a little deeper than that yellow ochre, but it's got a bit more delicacy to it. I quite enjoy using this now. We've got titanium white and Kremnitz white. Now, again, you might have a question about why the two whites, my guy. Well, we do talk about this in most live streams, so if you want to know about the whites, we'll talk about it a little bit, but do hit me up in the questions in case I forget to mention this and you want that answered. Then we got cadmium lemon, we've got Indian yellow, cadmium red light. I've got permanent crimson there. I didn't leave a space for it. That's why it's there, you see. Quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, cobalt teal, which needs to be freshened up. Where is my little tricky tube of teal? There we go. Love this stuff. Got it in the big tube. Very difficult to squeeze out though. It's a very solid color. And then we got some phthalo green, blue shade. Phthalo green, blue shade. Here we go. So that's my palette of colors there. And then the last little thing that I'll use for this study, I often use this when I'm painting plein air, and also with some of these little studies. The last little thing I'll get there is a little dollop of liquid impasto medium. Just off camera, you can see there at the edge, that little pottle there, that's just liquid original. So that's pretty much it. That's everything on my palette right now. And now I'm just looking for my tricky little, where's my synthetic? I must have left it over here. Ah! Here it is. In fact, these are all my good brushes. I'm going to grab all of them because I'm probably going to use a lot of them today. We'll talk all about the brushes too. There's always so much to talk about with painting, isn't there? There's always so much. It's that subject, right, that you just will not see the end of. I got too many brushes. I don't even know what to do with these brushes. Too many. Getting organized. Here we go. A professional would have organized this ahead of the live stream, but you know, hey, we can only work with what we got, right? Now, just a quick tip. Whenever I'm getting paint out of my tubes, I always don a pair of nitrile gloves. Okay, it's quite important that we do this. I want to keep the paint off my fingers if I can help it. And also I employ good studio practice. So when you look at my brushes, the handles are absolutely clean. The ferrules are absolutely clean. If I notice any transfer of paint there, I'll use one of those baby wipes and get that paint right off of there. So I just try to avoid the residue getting on me. That goes for the medium too. So just a bit of good studio practice there. Keeps us safe in the studio. But there was a question earlier about solvents. So Mark, unless you elaborated on that, I'll just say, I clean my brushes using Gamsol. Gamsol does not seem to bother me so much. It used to be Pure Gum Turpentine, but the Gamsol actually, I find does a much better job at cleaning the brushes. I find so far that the smell, it doesn't actually bother me. It's more or less odorless. And so in a big studio space, I get out what I need, I wash my brushes, I then put it back in the container, the oils, the paint and stuff settles out, and I continue to pour clean Gamsol off the top of that bottle. So I can keep using it. But in a big open space like this, it's not a problem. I'm not mixing it with my paint, and so I don't have to worry about the volatiles evaporating off, but there is butanone oxime in the liquid. I don't know what the long-term effects of that are, but it can be a little bit on the nose, but in a big vacuous space, not too bad, but you might want to have some ventilation. If you watch some of those earlier studio build videos, you can see my DIY ventilation system. Hey, shout out to Neil, shout out to Peggy, some other newbies here. Okay, I got a question, and again, Irene and Alexis and Kimberly and others, if I miss your questions, please type it in again, I can see the live chat blowing up. There's actually probably, I don't know, are we gonna break a record today? Are we? Yeah, okay, we've officially broken the record. This is the most people we've had watching on an Academy live stream ever. Welcome to the studio. Well, far out, no pressure. Oh goodness. You see that shake? That ain't the coffee. That's nerves, baby. So I want some nice design and composition here. I'm gonna go for, let's go slightly above our halfway point. So I'm trying to think about not breaking my rules. One of my rules is you want to avoid that axis of evil, which is our diagonals running through the center, our vertical center, our horizontal center. So we just get that horizon line a little above or a little below. We should be okay. I like the tree planted over on this side. We might even go a wee bit bigger. I want to have a bit more openness on one side than the other. Let's map out where our shape's going to go. And so really today, this isn't the final painting. This is just going to be a little study. The idea being we want to get this done relatively quick. But we want to have an idea. We want to have a solid grounding and foundation, a footing for being able to think about the bigger version. So I'm using a combination here of burnt umber and permanent crimson, using a synthetic pointed round. This is a Shiraz round number 2. It's got just enough sharpness that I can create some relatively fine lines. But it can also make a relatively broad line if I need that. What I really love is this pool that we have here. So we've just come at a particular bend in this little stream, and I quite enjoy the way this opens up as a shape here in the foreground. Now I'm standing pretty high up on one of the banks. So I've got a relatively elevated position in my reference material, but because our photograph, so when I was shooting this on the Sony, it goes pretty widescreen with some of those pictures, I'm taking off quite a bit of that edge either side and cropping it in. But I also want to change the shape of this stream and open it up so we can see maybe just a bit of erosion on this bank, a little bit of that shape. And I'm going relatively light here. Now there's just a little bit of liquid there, just enough to help me with that flow to create a nice line. It's going to be such a simple little paint. That's the thing I love about this area, just simple compositions everywhere. One thing that will help the composition though is a bit of repetition. So right here on the edge, I think we're going to have another couple of willow trees. There will be the suggestion of a hill beyond, but I think it really needs something else in the composition there. Let me go to the other angle here and see if we can see it a little bit clearer. I'm going to reduce this down I'm going to move you over there. We're just going to cover a bit of that phthalo. I hope that's okay. And I'll move me there. I just want you to be able to see. Maybe you don't even need to see me at all. Okay, you want to see me? That's all right. Yeah, so GW's got a good point. When you paint in plein air, you can avoid some of those toxic issues. You're painting outside, right? Okay, again, if I forget your question or don't answer it, I know Balsam had one and so did Alexis. Could you explain how to control your edges, specifically since you work with fast drying oil paint? I find the edges very difficult to maneuver once the paint dries. Yeah, sometimes, Alexis, you might want to work into what's called a couch. We've talked about this before on the live stream, but having a wet surface to work into can really help. And speaking of which, I just recently, last night, we loaded the first tier, the first installment of our epic tutorial, Icy River Cascade. Now, it might have gone out in an email blast out. We don't have Jim Fairburn here right now. He's taking a well-deserved little mini vacation to Queenstown, and so he's off. And he asked us, he's like, okay, you sure you know how to upload the module? And we're like, yeah, we got it. No, turns out we don't got it. We need Jim. So we put the module out. We sent it out there. I checked to see the views to make sure everything was going all right. And it went out to 0 people, 0. So we've done something wrong. We're going to get Jim on the phone and try and work out how we can rectify that. But I do have an epic tutorial that just dropped last night. It's just the problem is you probably can't see it. So in this video though, like I was using liquid, so my edges were drying. And so what do you do? How do you create nice edges? You know, here when we're going to be working wet and going pretty far with our painting, hopefully we get a nice little study out of it in the next hour and a bit. You know, it's a nice little painting, shouldn't take too long. But what do? So you create what's called a couch. Now, this can be done with just liquid on its own, or it can be done with a thin, fresh layer of paint. If you're going to do it with just liquid, the rule is you have got to, you must paint over that area that you just applied the couch to. Don't just leave it there on the surface. A bit like oiling in with liquid, you've got to completely go over that area. Otherwise, it can lead to some issues down the track. You just want to be careful with that stuff. Issues like yellowing. Disadhesion, probably not so much with liquid. Liquid, you should be okay. It's pretty sticky stuff. It wants to bond to itself even after it's dry. But having a couch to work in, it really does help. So it's just a wet layer of paint. So you say your edges went dry, just brush over a little bit of liquid, continue to work in that area, and you can feather out those new brush strokes. Sure, you can't mobilize that underlying layer, which might be nice, but it will go some way towards helping that effect. But I mean, this is one of the drawbacks with liquid. I mean, yes, very convenient for layering fast, but it dries so darn quick, man. All right. Oh, man, the live chat is blowing up. I'm going to miss some people, but I've caught Irene's question here. Can you use mineral oil out of the bottle with paper towels as opposed to baby wipes? Irene, you can, absolutely, but I wouldn't. And the reason why is because that mineral oil, without anything else in there, is going to leave a residue. And that will affect your drying time. I'm guaranteed. Mineral oil does not dry. And so with just the baby oil, without coming back in with another solvent, it's going to be a nightmare. So what I do, Irene and others, I'd get your pure gum turpentine, your artist turpentine, your odorless solvent, your Gamsol, whatever solvent you're using to clean your brushes, put on your nitrile gloves, get the bottle, tip it out onto your paper towel, and use that. Use a bit of solvent instead if you can't get the wipes. Okay. I don't paint on wood boards, says Balsam, much, but I think they're easier to store and work on. What do you do for a good board, and what brand do you prefer other than homemade? Okay, so I'll show you. I'll pick up this panel. I got them the other day. Wow. Okay, 1 second. Let me grab this. Let me talk to you. So the board that you're seeing now, this one is a reject, and you'll see why it's a reject. But I mean, the surface is beautiful. It can still be painted on. Okay, so this is what I'm painting on right now. So this is a homemade plywood board. It's primed on the back. I accidentally stuck it against another plywood board and it ripped the wood off the other one before that paint was dry. So that's why you're seeing that grain there. I mean, we could clean this up, sure. I mean, really, this is the business side, isn't it? So this is fine linen, PVA glued to a board. Absolutely love this. My buddy Samuel Earp uses these. He gave me a couple, very kindly, gave me a couple. And so I got in touch with the company because I wanted to supply these for all of the lucky folks who are going to be joining us on the New Zealand Plein Air Art Tour. If you're a newbie and you're just finding out about this now, sorry, it's sold out in less than a day. So we're completely fully booked. There is a waiting list, but the waiting list is like, might as well fill another tour. But we can't get all the bookings. Otherwise, I would have done 3 tours. But anyway, this company here, SourceTech, take note. If you can get these in the US, check them out. I'm very happy with them. This is Gator foam, so this is like a foam core board with a very nice high quality linen on there. My only criticism of this board, this particular board, I mean, they've got finer weaves as well. This is one that Sam likes to paint on. I think that weave is too coarse. And so I'm picking up distracting texture there. You would want to have a chunky painterly technique like Mr. Samuel Earp if you're going to paint on that. Me, I'm painting so fine that I don't like that. And it seems to have a preferential weave. So I don't know what I'm going to do with those, but this one here, I mean, look at this. You can barely tell it's got any weave to it at all. It's just so fine, so fine. You have to really get up on it to see it. So, so what do we do for boards? I'm still researching it because we got a price. The boards are fine. They're very high quality and they're going to be good value, but the shipping to get it here to New Zealand is like $2,000 for just the shipping alone. It's like, oh, goodness me. So I might be making my own linen panels for our people to join us on the tour. You guys might be getting some nice homemade panels. How about that? Well, it's what I paint on. I like the homemade stuff. I like to really connect with the work, so that's what I'm going to be using. Anyway, Andrew, stop piss farting around with the painting and let's just throw down some paint already. Okay, let's do it. Right, let's do it. So here, I might start off with a couple of these synthetics. I got a really nice brush here. We'll use that one. I was using this morning with just great effect. It's a number 8 short flat, series 274. Loving me those short flats at the moment. So we use some of that. Now, we've got our composition mapped out. I'm pretty happy with it. What I'm looking for is visual balance. I'm looking for a little bit of a destination. I'm looking for some repetition. I'm looking to try to avoid the center lines in a distracting way. I don't think we'll have an issue with the bank there. We've got our lighting dynamic and our darks and lights. I made a change here, so I'm exposing a little bit more of that trunk because I want to see more of the structure of the tree, see under it to the plane beyond, and this will give us an opportunity for some nice cast shadow here. All right. Not at all, Elaine. Welcome, welcome. Caps seems to be in vogue suddenly. Okay, Jens, I'm coming into the conversation late. Raymar panels are excellent. GW, I have to check that out. Thank you, Melissa. Yes, duly noted. Thank you for cracking the whip there. All right. Andy says, I glue canvas on both sides of my board, and I can paint both sides. How do you frame a painting that's painted on both sides, my bro? What are you doing there? You got one of those weird flippy frames. Have you got some flippy frames, dude? So, bit of burnt umber, bit of ultramarine blue, bit of permanent crimson. I'm going to get a bit of that transparent red oxide out as well. I'm liking the red oxide, and I'm going to get a bit funky with you with some of that phthalo green. Let's go in a different direction here. A little bit of, it's kind of like a little bit of a green, an off mustardy green. first of all, just working very thinly. I know you're thinking, well, you're not starting with what's furthest away first. I know, I'm flipping the script on you. Check it out. I just want to see my design. Is my design going to work? A big part of this design is that shadow pattern. One thing I'm becoming more and more dialed in to pay attention to is the shape design in the painting. Now, here on the Academy, we've talked about this. We've broken down the painting process in terms of considerations. We call them the 12 considerations. 12 considerations. So what are we talking about here? Well, I think we can more or less break painting down. This is just my take on things. You might have heard some other things. You might have some different ideas too. That's great. That's awesome. My personal take is that we can divide up most things in terms of these considerations, which kind of alludes to a process in a way, certainly an order by which we consider these things. And so when we take it in this way, I think it'll make sense. So what are we talking about here? Well, we started off with the end in mind, talking about what we love. This talks a little bit about time, place, mood, and narrative. That's time, place, mood, and narrative. So these are kind of the intangible qualities of the painting. This is like the spirit behind the painting, the raw emotion, the story, the feeling, the mood, you know? So this is something that's very difficult to measure. It's very difficult to capture. But I think when we begin with the end in mind, again, taking a leaf from Steve Covey's book about the 7 habits of highly effective artists, right? It's not called that. It's highly effective people, but you know what I'm saying. So we begin with that end in mind. That I think is a really good place to start. Now that'll get us there. Now, but again, we're beginning with the end in mind. So I've started with the last 4 considerations out of the 12, and we'll come back to that. So now that I've got some sort of idea about where I want to go with my painting, I focus on line and shape for my first considerations. So here, I've blocked in the linear aspect of the painting. And now I'm focusing on shapes. What kind of shapes am I seeing here in this scene? Then I want to think about tone. Tone. What is tone? You might be like, what word is that, tone? I've heard about tone, but how are you using it? Well, when I say tone, I mean value. Now, a lot of artists, art teachers will say value. That's great. I use tone and value interchangeably. So how dark something is, how light something is. Then we talk about color. You know what that means. So we're talking about the quality of color, chroma, saturation, cool, warm. This is where we talk about hue, all these various things. Color. And then finally, edge. Alexis was talking about edge a little bit earlier on. So that's line and shape, tone, color, edge. So this is our first list of considerations. And this is what we have to think about. This is kind of in our bag of tricks. This is what is within our control. And so we need to be thinking about every aspect of the painting in those terms initially as we're constructing our image. Now, following that, line and shape, tone, color, and edge, if we do a really good job with that, we can create a convincing feeling of form, depth, light, and material. That's form, depth, light, and material. Whether we're painting a landscape, a seascape, a portrait, a still life, or like what Alexis has been doing, some amazing still life paintings of various little scenarios. Like she's painted some toys. That's probably several months ago. Well, heck, it might have even been a year ago or so, a long while ago. But I remember her posting some really cool stuff over on the Academy. So it doesn't matter what the subject is. We're gonna need to battle, to wrestle with those particular facets of the process. I'm struggling for the words. I need some more coffee. Not enough coffee. I've been here a while. So I'm working here and I've just started to apply a little bit of this green, working either edge of that shadow. I'm gonna be working nice and thin here. I'm trying something a little bit different. You might be going, what is Tish doing? We're working in here nice and thin, a little bit of liquid, and I'm using these series 274s. This one here is an ebony flat. Really love that. Some nice brushes I'm playing with here. I have been just so motivated and somewhat influenced by some of the recent guests that I've had on the Creative Endeavor podcast. Epic episode just dropped with Thomas Fluharty. Make sure you check it out. You've got access to the official video version here on the Academy, so go and check that out. It's a perfect thing to listen to while you paint. But I just had a great conversation with the one and only Mr. Daniel Keys. That's coming out in a couple of weeks. But I find that, like, every time I have an opportunity to talk with one of these artists, I'm like, what you doing over there? Well, how are you doing what you're doing? What are you using? What are you mixing? What's on your palette? What brushes are you using? And Daniel Keys was such a nice guy, so open and just so available and willing to share what he was doing. No, I'm not trying to paint a landscape like Daniel Keys. But that said, I've been thinking for some time about these short, flat, synthetic brushes, and it just so happens that he uses a couple of these various types of brushes. I thought that was cool. Thought, you know, I'm going to do something different here on this live stream. I'm going to flip the script on you. Normally I work with whatever's furthest away first. In big studio paintings, I'd certainly do that. Whatever's furthest away first and work your way forward. That's been my general mode. But here, I'm playing. I'm pushing paint. There you go, Lori. Lori's got it. All right. Cheryl's saying, a famous artist said that paintings on paper are worth way less. GW, you got caps lock on. Just FYI. Lori says, Daniel Keys is so great. He stayed at our house for a month. Dude, I would have chained him up and given him art materials and just said, okay, like you're painting and we're taking notes, and no, you can't leave. We'll feed you. We'll give you everything you need, but no, is that dark? Is that sick and twisted? Maybe a little, but my goodness, what an opportunity. That's so cool. That's so cool. All right. I'm gonna put a little bit more of this in here. A little bit more of this in here. Let's go a little bit of burnt umber, ultramarine blue. We've got a bit of a shadow here being cast into the water, and it's reflecting, that tree trunk is reflecting right there. And then that immediately gives way as soon as the trunk is reflecting in an area of water that's in the sunlight. I notice that rich, rusty red color starts to come through. Let's lift out the tone with a little titanium white, little transparent yellow oxide, transparent red oxide. Whenever I do a little study like this, I think a lot about my plein air technique and working fast. Now, one thing you might have noticed from the Wellington plein air that we recently uploaded, have y'all seen that? Some epic demos are starting to come out, and we're getting them out there at a rapid clip now that one young Mr. Ty, who works with us now, is such a great team member, is young Ty. We're very impressed with what he's doing now. He's editing a lot of the long form demos. Mr. Fairburn has trained him well. Now, in that demonstration, the Wellington plein air, I did say this thing in the demo, and you might have caught it in other demos, and that is, you know, sometimes using a brush that's a little bigger than you're comfortable with. So the brush to panel ratio is a little bit greater. That can be kind of interesting. It can create a more painterly look. It can speed up your technique. And it can teach you something about economy of stroke. You say more with less. And so if you're not already thinking about it in those terms, I highly recommend it. using a bigger brush. So this is a pretty big brush, about 1/2 inch for an 8x10. And I might even use a brush a little bit later on that's even bigger. But to be honest, like I want to grab a smaller brush, but I won't. Now, here's the other thing as well. You're going to be looking at the painting. I know this, as do most, but well, not you, because you're seasoned. You've been here before, like you know the drill, and you've painted stuff. But it always starts off looking a bit funky, doesn't it? It sounds like I'm making excuses now. Stop it, just get on with it. But no, it always starts off looking a little bit funky, and then over time, it starts to tighten up. The trick is, though, when we're just starting out with our painting journey, is understanding that we need to get past that awkward phase. Often, we're too quick to judge a painting. I found this in particular with my drawings recently, is that it's just a matter of sticking with it. Because I'll look at my drawings and I'll judge it too soon and just go, oh, this doesn't look very good. Okay, what are we gonna give it up? Start on another one. But this little voice in my head says, no, 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 no. You stick with it now. Stick with it. So my saying with paintings is, hey, don't sweat it. You're only 2 or 3 moves away from nailing it. The trick is knowing what 2 or 3 moves to make. But anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So I like that little bit of red here coming through. And again, on my screen, it's looking a little funky. So I might have to let me just check this with the live stream feedback on YouTube here. Make sure that we're looking okay. Let me go over here to my other screen, scroll across. Let me see what you see. That's okay. It's a little on the warm side. It's a little on the warm side. It's a bit warmer than what I'm actually seeing in studio, just so you know. It's a little hotter. And so in real life, the palette is much cooler. I think the ZV is actually picking up the colors accurately over here on the palette rather than here. Do I try to change that? Can I do this midstream? Let me see. So in case I break the stream, I apologize. Oh, I think I can do it. Okay, I think I can do it. Let's go over here to white balance. Let's go, boom, boom. That's even worse. Okay, and we need to go the other way. White balance. Let's go tungsten. That's too cold. We need 4,000. 4,000 Kelvin, please. 4,000 Kelvin, boom. Well, now it's purple. What are you doing to me? Wait. What are you doing, guy? Color temp. Okay, here we go. 4,500. Okay. That's it. That's pretty close to what I'm seeing. I think that's it. Let me just double check my feedback on that screen there. Yeah, that works. Okay, cool. All right. Am I back on the screen? It appears so. Excellent. Neil is new. No. I used canvas sheets taped to a matte board, and when dry, remove the board. Easy to travel with. See? Oh, Neil, I'm so excited. I'm excited you're joining us. That's phenomenal, man. Awesome. Yeah. So there is that option as well. So I'm gonna have some options for our folks. I might have like a few, just because I don't want people to get precious with the materials. I want to sling some paint, right? And I want you to sling the paint as well. And sometimes when we get precious over our materials, it just gets in the way. So I'm going to provide probably some El Cheapos, and then the Rolls Royce of painting panels, which are the ones, they're the ones I make. They're so good. So good. Okay. A little bit of dappled light there. So with just a very little bit, we're getting most of the way there. I think before I go too far, I want to introduce, I'm going to paint the sky here last. Again, I'm flipping the script on you. I'm flipping the script. Before I get into that, I want to get into a little bit of that sunlight color that's filtering down into the scene. Now, to do this, I'm going to get another one of these brushes because I'm absolutely loving them right now. I got a packet here from Rosemary & Co. They're just wonderful. So these are the Short Flat Series 274. Here they are. Really nice. You're like, well, what about those daggers? Well, yeah, we use the daggers too, but these are just great. Oh, I love them. So let's get out some more color here. I'll use a new brush for this, and we'll go Cremnitz white, a little bit of cadmium lemon, a little bit of Indian yellow here, a bit of warmth there. Cool it down with a little bit of cobalt teal. That looks like it's new spring willow growth. Just put out spring leaves. There we go. Canopy's thinning out towards the top. As the light shines through these leaves, they tend to shine a little bit more yellow. Now the tree, of course, is going well off the canvas, but we'll go ahead and map that out. Again, if I missed your question, please, please, please hit me up again. Don't worry about spamming me. I want to make sure I answer all the questions. Let me just do a quick scroll back here. And Tina, as far as color itself, what is the difference between permanent crimson and alizarin crimson? Tina, that's a great question. So I don't use alizarin. Because it's not light fast. Permanent crimson, as its name suggests, is permanent. It is light fast. The trouble with a lot of these colors is that over time they change in terms of their properties. They end up fading. Some of them, and alizarin crimson was certainly this way. And so it's what they refer to as fugitive. It takes off. So, I paint with the end in mind, and I try to think about where I'd like my paintings to end up long after I'm gone. And I wonder sometimes, how would the old masters feel if Rembrandt could wander around the gallery today and look at his works? Would he be spitting chips? Would he be looking at it going, oh, dude, that's not the way I painted it? I think the restorers have done a pretty good job on a lot of his work. I mean, his works are just fresh and beautiful. And let's face it, we got some pretty good restoration work going on in a lot of these museums. But, you know, some of them, some works, based on some of the practices that artists had, they don't hang around so long. They don't last. And certainly not to the level that a lot of the old masters would have probably liked. So they would change in some way. They would yellow, they would go brown, they would crack. There's all sorts of stuff that can show up. So I like to paint as if my paintings are going to look as fresh as the week I put the brushes down, you know, 200 to 300 years from now. Is that possible? Well, maybe not. But I think if we employ good studio practice, we can get relatively close, right? Maybe? I don't know. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Rembrandt would say, put it in a dark room by candlelight, make you stand 10 feet away. Yeah. You'd have been yelling at people saying, you're standing too close. Right. So, I've got most of it down. Now, before we get that sky in there, I want to work with some of that green in the distance, start pulling that forward before we get into the saturated green down here in the foreground. And then we'll start to tighten this up and just turn up the dial a little bit. It's an 8x10, so we should be in and out of this thing relatively quickly. I say that, but I say this about every live stream. I'm like, I'm going to finish this painting today, live, in front of you. And then it's like, so I've painted one sheep. And there's more that I need to do. So, yeah. And it's always like, well, we'll film this one later. That's what happened with David Alaprima. That's what happened with Kimmy Alaprima too. But they turned into be some cool demos. So you'll see those here very shortly. They're currently being edited. So do you all remember the Alaprima portrait from a couple of weeks back, and then Kimmy from last week? They are done now, those paintings. Actually, Mr. Meeker, could I ask a huge favor? Would you mind clicking on that link on the homepage to see, just tell me if you can get the Icy River block-in to work for me? That would help. It is on the homepage live, but I just don't think we've granted anyone access to that. We're just looking for the button that will allow people to do it. Again, without Jim Fairburn here in studio, it's a little difficult. Now he's back on Monday, but I know we'll be able to reach him via phone and fix this up shortly after the live stream if it's not working right now. So, would you mind, Jim? All right, QQQ, if you could only spend your money on one quality item, what would you prioritize? Paint, brushes, or canvas? Paint. Paint. I think paint's the real, yeah, that's the thing. Hang on. See how considerate I am? I mute the microphone before having a coughing fit. Let me just get a quick drink here. Let's see if we can answer another one. Okay, don't have permission to view, says Jim Meeker. Okay. That definitely tells me we've done it wrong. Apologies for this, folks. It's the coolest demo ever. It's so cool. But you will have access to it very shortly, and so we'll be letting everybody know as soon as it's up and sending out an email. So again, apologies for the inconvenience, but we'll get that out there. We'll get that out there. It's a little button or a little something that we just failed to click on. Now, with this green here in the distance, we're going a little hazier and a little paler. This is kind of like an insipid grayed out green that's a little bit pale. But I do want to create some depth in this scene. So what we're going to have to do is have a point of contrast. If everything's bright and saturated, nothing is. If everything's such a high key color, you have trouble discerning what's closer and what's further away. So one way that I handle that depth is just tone down and push colors back, subdue them, gray them out, desaturate. One way that we can desaturate is mix plenty of earth colors into our greens. And so burnt umber can help sometimes for that. Also using the complementary opposite, that can help too. Just knock the edge off the green. You'll hear me sometimes say something like, we're gonna earth our greens, right? What that means is just grabbing a warm earth color, introducing it into your mix, and then you've got something that is a little bit more subdued. And that can really help create a green scenario like what we have here. We got green on green on green. Just create something a little more natural. Now, if you saw the video on brush loading, getting a lot of comments on that, which is great. People are finding that video over in the landscape painting course. Now, if you saw that, then I'm employing a few of those things here. When in doubt, use a bigger brush. If you're still in doubt, use more paint. You know, a lot of us are trying to work out, how do we get that painterly effect, that look that some artists have, you know? How do you get that? And so it really does help to load your brush with a little more paint than you think you need. Get that paint loaded on there. Now, I keep telling myself this, right? Because it's like, dude, you're just painting way too dang thin. How are you going to get those street and strokes if you got a little bitty bit of paint on the end of your brush? Get some paint on there, fella. And with that, we can make some decisive marks. Now, once we mix up a nice amount of paint, one thing that helps with that volume is a Krimnitz white. So a little something about the white here, right? Again, so a lot of my newbies wouldn't have heard this before. My OGs know the drill. But Krimnitz white helps with volume. It helps us create a real painterly flow to our combinations without blowing out the tonal dynamic. If I tried to do this with my titanium white, forget about it. It just would not work. It would be too chalky, too pastel. But with Krimnitz, I get to gradually lift the value, lift that tone, but it gives me the volume that I need. So here we're just using a bit of that to create a bit more volume here in this mix. And here you can see on the palette, look how cold blue that gray is, where we just applied it over here. Got a bit of that cold bluey gray coming through, but it looks a lot darker on that panel, I can see. But it's that volume. So as I'm mixing this in, it's gonna give me body to that paint without having to use copious amounts of medium. The other thing as well, so the Krimnitz is delicate, it's transparent, and it's structurally stable, it's structurally sound. If all areas of our painting have got a little bit of Krimnitz in there, oh man, the art restorers, we're gonna put them out of business. We will, as much as I love them. Wonderful people. But they might just have nothing to do if you just use more Krimnitz white. Kind of reminds me, there was a famous Norman Rockwell painting of a Maytag repairman. And he's just sitting there on, if memory serves, it's funny what my brain does, but if memory serves, he's just sitting there on the porch with nothing to do. The idea being that the Maytag service repairmen, they don't break down, so you don't, just nothing to do. Nothing to do. Now I'm painting pretty thin. I got the air conditioners going here in the studio. The heaters are on. The air's pretty dry. It's already starting to set up on me, which is kind of nice. So a little bit of stickiness is causing the paint to be pulled off the brush. Kind of enjoying that. All right. Yes, so there is a code. There you go for you, Chelsea. Trey's just posted it in the live chat. But if you would like 10% off your brushes and your paints, then use the code Tish Academy 10 for 10% off your brushes and Academy 10 for 10% off your paint. Now, thoughts and prayers are with everybody in the US right now that's going through this horrible flooding and terrible weather. Little update from Eric Silver. If you're gonna buy something, I think he might have even disabled the shopping cart. Asheville got completely hammered, along with a lot of other places. It's just terrible what's happened. But Eric has posted something. I've heard from Eric now directly, because I mean, I called him up and I had no idea. But my buddy Mike was like, "Did you see the news? You see what's happening?" I was like, "Far out, man." Like, I guess I'm just totally uninformed. But just to let you know that it's going to be a little bit late on that paint, okay? If you're even able to order at the moment. But he did assure me, he said, "Look, the workshop hasn't been hit. He could still use it, but he's laying low for a little while." And there was a big oak tree that came down. Fortunately, it just missed his workshop. If it hit his workshop, or heck, he's fine, his family's fine. If it hit the house, maybe that'd be game over right there. Like, so apparently a really big tree came down. But it did miss his workshop, thank God. So he'll be back up in action just as soon as, I'll give you an update as soon as that happens, as soon as I hear more from him. But he's okay, he's okay. Yeah, okay, so he did disable it. So just to let you know, and guys, let me tell you as well, like, if you don't mind, I mean, you might be in a rush to get some of these colors. If you can hold out for a little while and support Eric and get your paints from him. I'm such a big believer in Eric and what Eric does. Like, he's a true craftsman. This is all I use here in the studio. This is all I use. So I'm not just telling you to use these colors. I'm using these colors, Blue Ridge handmade oil colors. They're absolutely stunning. They're beautiful. There's such value for money, but he runs such a tight ship and such a small operation that when you get a craftsman like this, and just somebody who's just such a dude like Eric, it's nice to support them in what they do. So if you can hold out for a little while, and if there's a way to shoot him a message, just tell him you're thinking of him and praying for him. And so, yeah, but just to let you know, so he'll be back up in action hopefully very soon. And I'll let you know as soon as he's up and running again. Right. Start to introduce a little more yellow now. And I might get just a wee bit of a couch here to work into. I've got another bank right here. I've changed the shape somewhat of this water. There's still an awful lot of gray coming through in my green, but I want something to work into here for the foreground. We'll go ahead and get this paint off the brush. Look how much paint we had on the brush. We just cover that area right up. Why not? Bring your edges together, edge to edge, zone to zone. All right, I know that color is going to bug you. I know it is. You don't need to tell me. It's bugging me too. It's not quite there, is it? We just need more saturation. Now we can always increase the saturation to decrease saturation to get the intensity back out of that color once it's there. Very, very tricky. But I like to just gradually turn up the dial. So here we've got cadmium, a little bit of transparent yellow oxide, a little bit of transparent red oxide to earth that green. We'll work back in there with some of that color. Increase the saturation. Oh, I'm loving this Series 274, man. That's great. QQQ from Leon. Can't use lead white. Is Michael Harding warm white okay alternative? As long as it doesn't have zinc in it, you're good to go, Leon. Why can't you use lead white? Eric will ship to you once he's up and running. I need new brushes. What's your recommendation for a starter brush set? Kimberly, there might be an introductory set on the Rosemary & Co. website. If you search my name, Tischler, it'll pull up the set, and I think there's an introductory set, so check that out. Hey Tish, I might have answered this. What do you look for when taking your source photos? Great question, Nikki. Is the light reflections good, or shadow, or just happy snapping? Look, to be fair, a lot of it is happy snapping. But what I look for is sometimes composition. So I'll walk up and down the bank of the river. I'll try and position myself. So like here, for instance, in the stream, just like maybe a meter behind where the photograph was taken, there was a sapling growing up which blocked the view. So I'll kind of reposition myself so I can get a good aspect on what it is I'm trying to photograph, right? But essentially, I'm just looking for interesting shapes, tones, color, lines. I'm looking for information though, mainly. I'm not looking for a complete scene. I'm looking for information that will help me piece together a scene later on in the studio. Because a lot of my compositions, I rebuild later on. I don't try and get it all in the one photograph. And I know a lot of artists do, and that's okay. It's a good place to start. Look, we have photographs. I'm using a photograph right now. I'm copying most of it. You can see where I've made some of the changes. Compare the two, right? You see where I made some of these changes. But, you know, with those final studio paintings, I'm just looking at those references and going, okay, what's the information here? Give me the information. That's what I want. I just want information. And then I can make my own decision about where the painting needs to go. Can I just say thank you for being here? I'm enjoying the stream so far. I hope you are too. I say this in most live streams, and I mean it, that the Academy here and these live streams, this is really such a highlight of my week. I just enjoy it so much. Having the opportunity to sit down here with you, talk with you about painting, read all of your wonderful comments, answer these questions. This is awesome. But thank you for being part of the Academy. Now, you know, it's just staggering to me. This has been such a total unexpected blessing. It's been absolutely unreal. we've grown 1,000 members. It's just been such a jump in the last 2 weeks. It's just exploded here. And you know, if you know a little something about me, my OGs will know this, that what I try to do is I continue to try and work on not only my craft, my painting, but what we do here at the Academy. And so everything that I make, just about, I pour right back in to make it even better and better. So by being here, I just want you to know, you've helped me so much. I mean to turn this around and help you even more. But you've helped me expand what we do here and expand the team. So I went ahead and I hired more people. And what this has allowed me to do, and this thing I'm really excited about, it's been so wonderful. What this has allowed me to do is actually paint. There are some weeks where I don't paint. I don't paint. I know. It's like there's so much stuff going on here behind the scenes, you'd be shocked. And to get the opportunity to paint is a luxury. And now I nearly have a full-time painting week. And so the work is starting to flow, which means more demos, which means even more that we're going to have to talk about here. And so just by you being here, I want to say thank you for being here. I'm very grateful that you're here. I really appreciate you. And I mean that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And my team now thanks you as well. So that's awesome. All right, got a little bit of a bank here. I'll work out what's going on there in a little while. But I've saved this blue that is going to be in the sky and reflecting in the water for the end. When I say the end, we pretty much got everything blocked in. Now it's time for a little bit of finesse, right? A little bit of finesse. Thank you, Lori. Michael Harding has lead white. Then Leon, I definitely get your hands on some lead white, brother. Trey, thanks so much for that. How many countries? Ash, it's global. Most of the members are in the U.S. Most. I think it might be like 50 to 60%. But we got everybody in Europe. We got people from everywhere. You know, Piotr's over there in Poland. We got some people over there in the UK. We got France. We got Germany, Spain, and Portugal. We got people in Australia. People here in New Zealand. People from South Africa. There's somebody from South Africa here today, I think, or somewhere in Africa. I thought the comment said South Africa. Forget your name. I'm sorry. Hit us up again in the live chat. Nikki's a Kiwi. Hey, Nikki. Excellent. It's good to have a fellow Kiwi here. Are you a Kiwi in New Zealand? If you are, well done, you. Getting up early. That's fantastic. Thank you, Gigi. Also, Rachel's a Kiwi and Rachel's here. Okay, Rachel missed probably the start of this live stream, so I need to be careful what I'm saying. So, you know, there might be something here. Rachel, darling, is Hugo watching right now? Is Hugo what? Hugo, good morning, boyo. You see, Daddy left this morning got up out of bed at 4 a.m., was down here painting at close to 4:30. So I didn't see Hugo this morning. Everybody was out like a light, as they should be, as anybody sane should be at that time of day. Okay, he's not watching right now. Okay. Well, give him a hug and a kiss from me. I'll be home shortly. Well, when will I be home? Let me have a quick look at the stream. 45 minutes away. I might very well go a little bit over today. We'll see. We'll see. So, just working with a little bit of that shadow. Again, just delineating a couple of things here. What we need to do is get the blue of the sky in and start working this forward. Miss Olivia's here. Give me a second. Let me just tell her what's going on with the demo. 1 second here. Mic back on. Sorry about that, folks. I'm back. So I will just shout out Olivia, Miss Olivia Montgomery. So she's here in studio now. Like my team works with me here in the studio, you see, and so it's been wonderful with all this growth in the academy. It's allowed me to take on somebody that can help with the academy and help with things like social media and all this stuff that takes up time. I want to be painting pictures and hanging out with you. And sometimes we need help from wonderful people to keep our nose to the grindstone and doing what we do. So, again, it's all good. As soon as that sky gets in there, I feel a little bit better. So again, I'm digging these Series 274s. They're nice. I want more paint though. That's what I want. I want more paint. So more volume. That Kremnitz White's going to help me. A little bit of that liquid impasto. Now, the ratio, by the way, you might have heard me say this. The ratio for your medium, my OGs know the drill. Medium to paint is 1 part medium to 3 parts paint. I try not to exceed that. Oh, cheeky little bristle there. Get out of there, fella. When you see those, pick them up. 1 part medium to 3 parts paint. One thing about these brushes is they don't really allow for much of a brush stroke. So I'm trying to push this brush to its limits. It's a little soft in the fiber to really lay down a structured mark. I mean, let's face it, it's no Tisch dagger. Those daggers are where it's at. I might go ahead and switch it out here in a second. Now let's observe here what's going on. Let's check this out. Let me just clear that clip a little bit here. Sneak that brush up under there, and we'll come back with some marks over the top of that. But one thing I can observe from the scene is that there appears to be a deeper and more saturated note to the blue that is reflecting in that water, as opposed to what it's actually reflecting from the sky above. I know that looks a little bit freaky and weird up there, but we're gonna have some of that willow over the top of that sky, all right? I know it's weird, chill, it's all good, we'll get there. QQQ, what colors are you using in the sky? Thank you, Kimberly, beg your pardon. So here, we're using ultramarine blue. We got a little bit of cobalt blue. We got a little bit of cobalt teal. You can see that cobalt teal just away from my reference material. Let's shift that reference material out of the way just a little bit here. Okay, so just a little bit of that cobalt teal. So those 3 blues work really well. Sometimes a hint of quinacridone. I haven't used any there. But we also have the color of the imprimatura, right? So you might have been wondering, what are you staining that canvas with? That's burnt sienna, burnt umber, wiped off completely. And that imprimatura really does help. Okay, so let's go ahead and get a little bit of that same color, just deeper, slightly deeper tone. Cobalt teal in there, a little bit of cobalt blue, a little bit more Kremnitz White, a little bit more ultramarine. So the 3 blues again, the 3 amigos. No landscape is quite complete without them. You see how that's a slightly more saturated note? That kind of makes sense to me. I'll get in here in this water. The one thing I like about a flat brush, very similar to the daggers, is the shapes you can make with them and how you can kind of just sneak into an area and get a relatively clean edge, and you can work right up to an edge and cut out some interesting shapes with a bit more precision and control. Now, I don't really want sharp edges because I'm not seeing much evidence for it, but what I want is an area of color that I can work into. That'll help. Now, it might be slightly off here with the tone. I'm just tilting that brush up onto its corner. and even mixing in a little bit of that underlying color. That's okay. I can see some of that color mixing going on there in the actual photograph. So we'll drag that color across. And then over on this side, notice that sky reflection on the back side of that tree. Now one guy, there's a book that I absolutely love, taught me a lot about painting. His name is Trevor Chamberlain. And I can't remember the title of the book, but it's absolutely brilliant. First place I ever learned what a pochade box was. Very cool. Amazing painter. But he had like a shorthand technique. It was almost like writing shorthand. He had a shorthand technique for being able to capture the landscape. I've just never seen anything quite like it. So if you can get your hands on the book, just have a look for, it's in the series Ron Ranson's Painting School. And it's by a guy named Trevor Chamberlain. It was put out in the 90s. You might be able to find a reprint of it. I don't know if he's still going. I hope he is. Great painter, amazing painter. A pochade box, Rhiannon, a pochade box. So a pochade box is just a small box. Yeah, it's very similar to what I'm painting on here, actually. This is French box easel, but it's like a French box easel, but collapsed up, kind of shoebox sized. Well, you can get all sorts of sizes, and you can, plug it into a camera tripod and use that as your easel base, and that's what you paint outside with. All right, good fun. Let's get out some smaller brushes now and start to apply some lighter details. And I'm gonna jump track here, and I'm gonna go straight to my dagger brushes. A series of sizes here. I've got a 3/8 of an inch, I've got a 1/4 inch, and I got some old Fuglies there. They're nice for foliage. My Fuglies. There we go, grab a couple of these 3/8. So I've got some 3/8 too. I really love a bit of texture in the painting and building up. And this is one thing I love about the Liquin, is that we can build up a texture in a surface pretty quickly once it's dry. But we'll go as far as we can here, working wet and wet with this little tree by a babbling brook. Good fun. Hope you're enjoying it so far. Let's go ahead and get over here into a bit more color. The thing I love about the dagger, let me tell you, it's just like a bloomin' spatula. You can just really trowel on that paint. And so I mix up quite a volume here, as you can see. And if you watch that brush loading video, you see some of those side shots where we really scoop it up, but I mix that color and then I scoop it up on the brush. And now I've got something that I can actually apply and work with. A little bit of violet there in that sky combination. I'm playing off the quinacridone magenta with the cobalt teal. Not sure if that's coming through there. But I really want just a little bit more color. And texture, painterly texture. So let's switch that back to the close-up view here. Now with some of those grasses that are growing, can you make that out in the reference photo? Some of those grasses that are growing on that hill, we're going to go for that raw sienna, bit of titanium white, bit of Cremnitz white, bit more liquid impasto medium there, and just work directly in to what I'm seeing there in the existing paint layer. To bring a little bit more greenness to it, I mixed in just a little bit of cadmium limit, just a hint, don't overdo it. Let's get some of that grass that's against that slope. Differentiate one of these slopes from another. As we're looking at these grass stalks, edge on, this is the accumulation of those grass stalks that we can see as that hill turns a form away from us as the viewer. It actually shows this little bit of a lining. So down here, down south, all the hills have a silver lining. It's quite beautiful. I bet a farmer would be able to look at the hill and tell you from looking at it or looking at the photograph what season it was based on little bits of information like that. Oh, dried grass stalks. Okay. Yeah. You know, maybe if there weren't any trees there, they might be able to tell a little something about that. But just a little bit of texture here. Oh, excuse me. I need to drink a little bit more while I'm painting because you do get a bit hoarse. Oil painting, pure and simple. Ron Ranson, Trevor Chamberlain. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Awesome. Hey, that sketchy scene. Made a quick drawing of a dark alleyway yesterday. Very sketchy place. Awesome. Awesome. Ron Ranson did a Montague Dawson book as well. Montague Dawson, he's, yeah, fantastic. Nettie is up. What time is it for you in Australia, Nettie? Well done being here in the live stream. Were you here at the beginning? Did I miss you? 153 watching. No, there isn't. Oh, wow. Okay, all my Australians have woken up. They're watching this as they eat their bowl of Wheat Bix, Vegemite Toasties. Welcome. Again, if you miss it, no, don't freak out. You'll always have access to the replay. There's always a replay, but there's nothing quite like watching live. And again, any QQQs? 5:30. You call 5:30 a.m. a sleep in. I love that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. All right, let's get some color out. Let's paint a couple of little trees here. I'm going to start detailing this painting from the back towards the front. And when I say detail, I use that term very loosely. But I want to start thinking about some of the finer features in the landscape. I love these little trees that are dotted about this hill. Now, because we're painting over the top of a wet layer, we need to continually reload our brush, okay? Don't go expecting your brush to do all this hard work with a thin amount of paint working over a wet layer and expect it to deposit paint. We must load the brush between strokes, or the minute you see that it's no longer effective, go ahead and reload. Reload. Okay. Got a little tree up there. So these are a different type of tree. These are not willows. This is a manuka, as they call it down here. So it's a particular kind of tea tree. Not as in like tea that we drink, but very heavy with oils. I think maybe just a little shadow under those trees might be nice. So I'll get in there with my synthetic pointed round, here my Shiraz round, a little bit of cobalt blue, a little bit of phthalo green there, champion. Why not? There we go. And notice on some of these trees, it's just a wee bit of a shadow underneath. Let's see if we can just be decisive and bold with a few of these marks and just say it once. That butter coffee has taken full effect. I can barely hold my hand steady. Anyway, Is that picking up the line of that tree too much in a distracting way? I think so. Let's go ahead and break that. So again, I will, if I flip the script and I change something, I tend to create order and pattern where it would not exist in nature. So when I notice that, we just go ahead and break it. So this will be a continuation of lines. This will be a repetitious form, a pattern, something that appears, we talk about this in the critique videos, something that appears that wouldn't ordinarily appear in nature, or you would have to move your position to get things in the landscape to line up just so. It's like, you know, you're painting or photographing the rising moon in the landscape, and you just happen to position yourself so that it was directly above the peak of a mountain. I try to avoid stuff like that in my compositions. I'd like to achieve what's called asymmetrical balance. So, but again, I digress. With order and pattern, just step aside so that relative position of the tree to the other trees in the background, it just shifts over slightly. Now, I want a little bit more color to come through on my willow, a bit more cadmium lemon, a little bit more of that Cremnitz white, a little bit of a paler yellow. We'll get some of the light to shine off some of those billowing leaves. And do I have a bit of reference here that will support this idea? So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Yeah. Over here. I'm looking at that one now. Just a little bit. All right. Nikki says it's also good for smoke and fish. Word. Manuka honey comes from Manuka trees. Yes, awesome. 3 a.m. Danielle, what? Danielle, where are you? Are you in Perth? Where are you, Danielle? I'm impressed. All right. Yeah, Quentin. So Quentin says creating built-in patterns is his nemesis. It's a constant fight. Me too, brother. Me too. Like it is. It's difficult. It's difficult. I contend with it all the time. In fact, I point out in this demonstration, as soon as we can get it together and put it out there, I'm going to email everybody and say, here it is. So in that demonstration, I talk about even bands within the landscape, that because it's an invented scene, right? So even bands in the landscape, and as soon as I noticed it, I'm like, oh, come on. So I had to think of a creative, clever way to break it. Once you see it, and you can break it, and there's always a solution to these things, then it's important to do so. Oh, I love my fuglies for a bit of texture. Just get a little bit of texture in that willow tree. I mean, we could do more with the detail there. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. I want to get into this tree and have something with a bit more saturation. Before I do, let's pull in that foreground with a little bit more cadmium and a little bit more of that green grass. So can I get a little bit of cadmium lemon, a little bit of Cremnitz white, a bit of phthalo green, a bit of Indian yellow. Oh, intense, dangerous combination here. We're getting some intense green now. But I think we're going to need it here. We can go a little bit further with this, but I just need a little bit of that fresh spring grass here. The blade edge of my dagger, just drag a bit of that paint through, start bringing that pasture forward. I might not be doing as an effective a job as I can, so let's go ahead and raise that opacity and that vibrancy, that reflective quality with a bit of titanium. But as soon as the titanium hits it, oh man, does it ever go chalky. Goodness, so I got to balance that out and fight with that with more color. So you'll find that titanium is awfully chalky. But a bit of that green, that'll allow this to start jumping forward. Notice now how this green feels so out of place because it's now brighter and more saturated than what's down here. I know it, I hear it. I'm so aware of the time, and I really want to get this painting as close as possible in the time. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know. I can't believe, like 2 hours is like 5 minutes when you're painting. It's just not a lot of time. We might have to start doing some 5-hour live streams with a wee little lunch break or something in between. We might just have to start doing that. Like maybe like once a month or something, do the epic stream, right? All right, bear with me, folks. I'm going to mute my mic while the rest of my team arrives. It is now 8:45 in the morning, and I'll just mute my mic while they get set up at their workstations, and maybe just a little bit longer so I can give them a good tune-up. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing quite like getting yelled at first thing in the morning. I don't yell at my team. I'm kidding. I got some really wonderful people working with me here. All right, just a second. And we're back. Thank you for that brief interruption. All right. Nettie's saying yes, please, to a 5-hour live stream. Nettie, it might just be you and me there in that live stream. I don't know if people are ready for that. But let's do it. Let's do it. Because I feel like we need to paint more. We need to do something a bit longer, and I think no. In all seriousness, Leslie says not true. Okay, cool. Cool. Melissa will be there. Okay, let me know right now in the live chat. This is just something. That was a throwaway comment. Really, it was. But let me know seriously. Would you all be interested in a live stream that went for 5 hours? For real, would you? I'll do it. I'll do it too. All right. Hey, Olivia, we got to schedule a 5-hour live stream. Woo! Let's do it. Should we do it next week?
Go on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
7 till 12 noon. With a break in the middle. All right. All right. Yeah. You better, I'm telling you right now, you better be there. You said yes, I'm going to do it, and you better be there, okay? Let me have a chat to my team. If I can swing it next week, I'll announce it. Otherwise, we'll try and do it sometime within this next month. All right? That's cool. That's cool. All right. And then we might be able to get something done, huh? Enough of these like fits and starts here in the studio going, hey, come on. You just never get anything done, dude. Introducing a little bit of that more saturated green there. Can you all see the corner of that painting okay? Let me go ahead and grab this now. I'll drag the reference over there so you can see that. And let's start working with the green over on this side, and then we'll get into that tree. I think we need to work on our tree a little bit, but a bit of this green. So let's, and there's gonna be a point where the green will just go, that's it. I can't do any more saturation, that's it. But we'll get pretty far here. I just want a little accent of something so that this area, not too much, don't want to paint it out, but that this area will come forward. So just a bit. But one thing that might help, and farmers don't like me when I do this. They actually, because a lot of farmers, they around here especially, they take good care of their property. So if the gorse, the broom, or the thistles start coming up, they're out there taking care of it. But I go ahead and put them back in. And the reason why is because I think they're interesting. And they break up my foreground in such a way that I can break up these flat areas of green. I don't like the monotony of green, 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 green. I mean, look, it's nice to have a bit of green grass, but if I'm not breaking this up with an animal in here, then I'm going to put the weeds back in your field, dude. Sorry. If I tried to handle a farm like a painter, I'd have the worst farm ever. But it would look cool. No, seriously, the landscape here is pretty crazy. It's pretty incredible. I think I'd paint a few of these landscapes, and you might have gotten a taste of this in one of the recent South Island on Plein Air Part 1. There, you'll find that in the Plein Air reference, Plein Air library, course library. But that painting, there's a first demo there. That'll give you a taste of what the landscape looks like near where I live. It really needs to be seen to be believed. It doesn't look real. It looks like somebody got a bright green bed sheet and threw it out across the landscape. And it's just rolling green hills in this even pattern, but it just looks, doesn't look real. It's really amazing looking. Brilliant for photographs. Might be a bit challenging to capture with paint, but we're going to give it a go. I haven't painted much of this, but it's just, it's the Clutha area. It's this Otago area. Very interesting. Nikki, where in New Zealand are you from? Yeah, I don't think I'll paint the gorse, Nikki. I'm not going to paint the gorse. If I missed your question again, QQQ and NNN, Rhiannon, okay. Are you cleaning your brush when changing color or changing brushes? Rhiannon, great question. I got a handful of brushes here and I'm just changing them out. I'm changing them out. It needs a big foot in the background. Doubtless Bay. Oh, fantastic. Hey, Olivia, where's Doubtless Bay? North Island?
Yeah, I think it's in South Island.
South Island? Yeah. Is that North Island, South Island? Is that South Island? Forgive me, I'm not familiar with that area. Top of the... Oh! Oh! Up in Nelson. Grew up in Nelson and Otago. Oh, cool. Up top of the north. Fantastic. Awesome. Piotr in the house. Hello, Piotr. How are you? Rightio. Now, one thing I love to do, I mean, I enjoy getting as close as I can with my paintings, but I love to layer. And this is already kind of reminding me of that Alexandra Cascade painting where we layered on top of a somewhat heavy textured surface. And so when we're painting things like weeds and grass and thistles and such, that can be kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. So I'll get a little bit of that transparent red oxide, bit of burnt umber, a little bit of ultramarine blue in there too, making a nice dark shadow with my synthetic pointed brown, keeping it thin. A little bit of a darker shadow here under the lip of this bank. And we'll go ahead and I'll move my reference back out of there. Where can I put the reference? It's not going to be in the way. I don't think it'll be in the way there. There we go. And I don't think I'll be in the way if I go there. Is that better? That looks better. Okay, now you can see the whole thing. Great. Right, QQQ from Kathy. I'm not seeing my question, so I'm not sure if you can see. Newbie here, oh, welcome Kathy. Do we try and paint along, or is there somewhere in the academy where we have a reference we can all be working on? Yeah, you don't have to paint along. Most people don't. They just kind of watch and learn and maybe take some notes, but you do you. You don't have to paint along. I don't really design these as a paint along. It's more just an opportunity for me to demonstrate my technique. And what we do with a lot of these live streams is it gives you the context. You get to see how a lot of these paintings start. And so really it's the start that I find we can do so much good and talk about so much, because you don't really get a sense of that when you're looking at a post on Instagram or Facebook, or you see in the video on YouTube. So if you want to paint along, you might have to be a bit quick. Might be a wee bit of a trick there. But by all means, you may. QQQ from Nikki. Did you meet Rick Edmonds? No, I didn't. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Wim55. That's awesome. There's a lot of people watching. So we're gonna. I mean, if you're watching now, chances are that there's a lot of newbies here in the house, which is awesome. A lot of people, they've never seen me paint live before, and I'm just having a good time. I hope you are too. I'm playing. I'm feeling my way along the surface here. Teasing things out, looking at my reference, thinking about it, playing with that light and shade. Now, sometimes in these live streams, we work on paintings that are already in progress. We talk about all sorts here, so it's not the same thing each week. There's going to definitely be variety. The previous two live streams, we did portraits. Often, this is the case, I'll go and have to finish the demos that get started in the live streams. Most of them get finished. Some of them don't. This one will, because I'm just enjoying it so far. But one thing's for sure with painting, it takes time, right? It takes time. It takes patience. It takes a bit of persistence, a bit of dedication. But I don't know about you, but I feel here, I'm pretty happy with this as a base. I feel like everything's more or less in the right place. So we're just going to start adding to it. And I'm starting to build up. You can see little glints of light coming off this, and I'm using a fugly brush here. So this is an old filbert brush that I have like completely bruised and battered. And it's one of my, it's got a green handle. You might be noticing that, Rosemary & Co. don't make green handled brushes. No, they don't. I would not dare treat one of my Rosemary & Co. brushes as bad as I've treated this Montmartre brush that I bought in Perth like 20 years ago. Never throw a brush away, by the way. You never know when you might need it to make a fugly. I call these fugly. They're great. Very handy painting tool indeed. So a bit of darker tone will start to allow some of these passages to come a bit further forward. Get some of that depth in the shadow here close to the water's edge. And so now what I'm doing is I'm just finessing. I'm just cruising along here, looking for areas where I can add more information. And just tweak the color, adjust, adjust, adjust.
So this allows me to pull some things forward and to push some things away. And the fuglies, they help me with a stroke that is broken. And so it's reminiscent of the grass that's growing here on the side without me having to paint each and every blade of grass. Just flicking a bit of wet paint through can help me create a broken stroke with individual little lines in there, little ridge lines. So it's kind of reminiscent of the grass. So a little bit of a trick there that can help. That said, we can always come back later and add some individual blades as accents here and there. And a little bit of a lighter green on top to build out some of the volume there. Just know, I am going to come back to this area in the foreground at a later date, but I'm going to just ignore it for now and start focusing on some of the other areas in the painting that need some attention. While we're here, we'll add a bit of that dappled light effect. So we have a shadow that's being cast on the other side of this riverbank from this willow tree. And the willow tree is absolutely massive. It goes way above and the top of the canvas here, but we don't get much of a sense of that. Part of the reason is because of its shape has been cut short by the sky that I've introduced there. So we'll work back into that. So we're going to get some more ultramarine blue out. We need more paint. And again, I've got to reload that brush to make sure that my brush strokes are having an impact here. So let's get out a little bit of Creminence White. We've got a bit of burnt umber, so volume, right, for the Creminence White. A bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of transparent yellow oxide there. A touch of phthalo green. So I'm finding my feet here with a cool, dark green, reminiscent of some of these willow leaves in the shade. I'll introduce, though, we need a little bit more of that green quality, so I'll introduce just a hint of cadmium lemon. Boom, we've got the saturation. Let's add a little bit here. Oh, that's a nice dark green. Very good for the shadows. Actually, you know what I'm going to do before I start working in the top? I'm going to start working down here where it overlaps this field out there in the distance. So we have a few of these leaves hanging down. Looks like we have young TY here. I might just have to mute the mic while he comes in. Just 1 second. We'll paint some more leaves. All right. I cannot believe how fast time flies. We've got about another 5 minutes here of the live stream, or 10 minutes, I think. Normally I go over. I'm going to finish more or less on time today. I'll chat with my team a bit later and we'll work out if we can do a stream that's going to be 5 hours long, and we'll try and do it next week. But bear with me. Piotr makes a comment. He says, so cold greens, brr. You're right on, brother. There's a lot of cold greens in here, and there will be some warm greens too. Now what I like to do is play off my tones one against another and my colors one against another. So I'm playing with opposites continually. So we're working with contrast in so many different ways. So how many different contrasts can you think of? The painter's got to have complete use of all of them. Sharp versus diffused, thick versus thin, light versus dark, warm versus cool, saturated versus desaturated. Then when we start to think about our complementary opposites and playing those against one another, you can see just how much you have at your fingertips to play with. And so it's using all of these tricks that are available, all of these considerations that are available, that helps us create the complete image. So some of the greens might appear pretty cold. I'll give you that. They are pretty cold. Wait till we start putting in some hot greens. But for now, I'm just going to work with a bit of that dark green there and that deeper, darker tone and a little bit of the texture here. The brush is a little small for my liking. I should probably get out a bigger brush. I know. But if we can avoid getting precious with it, No. So Anna, yeah, so if you've got a question, 3 capital Qs. Have you viewed Hans Holbein, The Ambassador's Skull? It's wild how it's painted. No, I haven't. I will check that out. Quentin, overworking or detailing leaves is something that I struggle with, especially getting the balance of leaves in the foreground versus the distance. Any tips? Yeah. I mean, for somebody personally, like myself, I struggle with putting in too much detail often. I'll give you a tip, Quentin. Right. We've talked about this before, but success leaves clues, right? If you want to get what they got, you got to do what they did. One thing I found to be really beneficial is painting master copies. Now, I've only done 2. I've done an Arthur Wardle and a Lucy Kemp Welch. But those 2 were an absolute paradigm shift for me. And I realized how little information is in their paintings. There's really not a lot going on in there. And so I realized I could get away with less. And in fact, the paintings would turn out better if I didn't spell everything out. And some of the areas in the background, I mean, I did this master copy, and it was a gift for Rachel, and so it's hanging in our kitchen. And it's a big horse painting, and the kitchen just happens to have the only wall that would accept this thing. But it's a big horse painting, and so 36 by 48. But as I'm looking at it, we're sitting there at the dinner table. Last night I was sitting there having dinner, and I was just saying to Rachel, I was like, "There's nothing there." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The painting, like it's weird. There's nothing going on in the background. It's just blobs of color, but it totally works." And I'm still looking at it. I tried to be as close as I could with the actual copy. I don't think it's fooling any experts on Lucy Kemp Welch. They can definitely tell it's a copy, a poor copy at that. But that said, it's still, it was just such a lesson in holding back. So first and foremost, I'd say, who's the painter that you hold in high regard? Who do you think had that balance of detail just right? And maybe do a study or make a master copy on that artist. Then, what I'd suggest, highly recommend, with thinking about your painting in terms of strategy. Now, obviously, we can't paint individual leaves back here with this tree. But we certainly can with this tree here in the foreground. When I say individual leaves, I'm going to keep that, try and balance that as best I could, best I can, it just within reason, right? And I haven't added any of those highlights yet. In fact, I want to move now to, because what I'm having trouble with personally just right now is just some of those chibbly marks. They're just a wee bit too chibbly for me. You can go too far with the brush, and you start creating a bit of a pattern and a bit of an order. And so once I see it, it's like, break that stuff. I'm seeing a cool green coming through. So a bit of cobalt teal, but not too cold. Bit of that Indian yellow and a bit of that cadmium lemon as well. And there's some of these leaves that are hanging here, and just with the dagger, I kind of want to break up some of those areas. Just get a bit more of structure in the mark, just for a couple of these spots. I think that'll help before coming in with some highlights. But there's one more thing I want to do before those highlights. Now that tree, obviously, it's continuing to go up, 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 up above the canvas. But I think we could use just a couple more leaves to just indicate the scale. So it's going up and over. And now we've got context for this. So we can have a little bit of a feeling that that's going off the page. So again, we gotta load up that brush in order to have any impact working over the top of that wet sky. Just the end of the fugly will help. We'll break that hill line a little bit, but that will help. Reloading that brush, achieve some of that, and break up that mark. Okay, one thing I want to do first is I want to work back in to the wet paint here with some branches. Now, I've got here a Shiraz dagger. I really do like the ivory dagger. I use Shiraz for other things, but I saw this here and I thought, I'm gonna get out the Shiraz dagger and play with this a little bit. I don't often use this brush. I love the dagger shape, but a synthetic dagger would really help create some sharpness in our lines. So I want a bit more paint out here. Quentin, did I answer that question properly? Let me know if you want me to elaborate a little bit more. But it could just come down also to your applicator, and just as you're consciously aware of it, just go, no, okay, stop it. Like maybe a challenge would be, a really great challenge would be, don't allow yourself to go for that detail brush. Like save it until absolutely right at the very end. Now I have to reload my brush each time. Have a look how often I reload this brush as I go here, okay? So to achieve some of these sharp lines, we want these boughs dipping down, and then notice on the willow tree, they curve back up again. Where's a nice line? We could pick up a line here. Pick up another line here. I reload each time. I wipe the paint off the brush because I'm picking up that paint underneath. Reload each time and then make a new mark. I'm not trying to rush this part of the process. Now in some of these areas we'll cut into that green, but we can come back again and add more green over the top. We can always do that. The trunk is pretty dark up in there. And one thing's going to help our willow tree come further forward is if the darks in this tree are darker than that other tree in the background. We're already getting a little bit of that sense of depth here. Okay, so up here I see a couple of branches that cut across the sky. I picked up a lot of that sky color, so I'm going to need to mix some more paint. Are you using Liquid Fine Detail? No, Trey. I'm just using Liquid Original. I don't use the fine detail anymore. I mean, it's okay. It's a good product, but I just found I haven't needed it, that the Liquid Original gives me all the flow that I need. I find also that the fine detail goes stickier quicker, and I don't like that so much. I don't appreciate that. That's right under the clip, so I'm gonna just put a branch in and then avoid that area. It's right under it. It's just clips in my way. I dare not move the clip because my painting will fall in my lap here, and nobody needs that. I'll ruin my perfect streak of not getting paint on my shoes. But we can get crazy with this. We can start adding branch on branch on branch. Let's add a few more. I was waiting for this moment. My Aussies were over there going, oh mate, this is rubbish. But hopefully now they're like, oh actually. took me ages when I moved to Queensland. Took me ages to work out what the heck they were saying. It's not the accent, it's the sayings. There's this thing here, you know, it's a bit how you going. Like, yeah, good, thanks. No, it's a bit how you going, you know? What? So, yeah, beautiful part of the world is Queensland. Take your phrase book with you. Just darkening up that trunk. We might have a little bit of light coming into that trunk, but I want to bring some branches over the top. And I've run out of paint here, so a little bit of liquid original. Again, for the flow, you know, Trey, we don't need that. We don't need that liquid fine detail. So just a wee bit for flow, but again, trying to stick to that ratio. I might go under, I might be under, but generally, you know, be over or under with that ratio, but generally it's about 1 part medium to 3 parts paint, generally. If you've gone over that, don't freak out. It's going to be all right. Hey, Ann, welcome. Hey, Ann, what part of Queensland are you from? I lived up in the Tablelands. Rachel and I lived in the Atherton Tablelands for about 11 months, many years ago. Put in a few more branches here. I love this branch over on this side, even though it's kind of exiting the painting, but it gives it that willow character, you know? Couple of these bigger boughs up here, I think will help, and a bit more structure towards the top of that tree. Again, it just helps justify the dimension and breadth of this shadow here. Otherwise, you'd be like, well, why are you getting a shadow over there? But now it kind of makes sense, right? The tree's continuing up and on. Brisbane, fantastic. Hey, you're coming on the tour, fantastic, awesome. Oh, I'm really looking forward to meeting you. Hey, and Terry, I'm going to get to paint with Terry as well, in person. I'm looking forward to that. Terry from Montana. Terry's got a question. What's the best way to find finishing second part of these paintings? We'd like to finish our lesson. Okay, for sure. So with some of them, we'll be uploading those to the course library, Terry, but with the Alla Prima of David and the one of Kimmy, we're going to be putting that in Portrait Deep Dive, and we're going to be adding that to that library. I think that the first installment will be here next week. So it's getting finished off right now with Ty, our editor. And so once he's had that finished, I will be doing the voiceover, and I'm pretty sure next week we'll get that out. And very shortly after that, the following week, we'll have Kimmy. And so they were started on the live stream, and they'll be finished off there in the course library. And we'll link to the live stream for people to catch the replay. So you'll be able to find that there. Now, with this, it'll probably go into the landscape painting course. So we'll do a brief overview and a recut from the live stream, just a brief little overview so people will know where to go to watch the first part live, or the replay of the live, and then we'll carry on. So we'll let you know as well. So one thing that we're starting to do is email all the folks here on the Academy to let them know what's been uploaded and when, so that those demonstrations can be found. Just a way to kind of keep track of it. So we'll email with links. We'll also include them in Paint FOMO as we release more of those. And you can also find shortcut links. Remember, you can always find the shortcut links on your home page. So make sure you check that out. Start to add a little bit of that darker phthalo green in here now. And I think what we really need, what we're missing here, is just a little bit of a highlight or two in those leaves in our tree. It's kind of like we got the base now, we got some of the branches, we got the darker branches anyway. We need a few highlight colors. Now, pretty dark with those boughs, I'll give you that. But it's not quite black. It's actually a few steps up from black. I don't have black here on the palette, as you'll remember when I listed the colors at the beginning. So it's a mixture. It's a little bit of that burnt umber and ultramarine. That's always my go-to first, black. And then I could use phthalo green permanent crimson, that's great, or burnt umber, quinacridone magenta and phthalo green, that's another combination. But when we're painting trees, I often see, people have the tendency to either go for a black and then a white, and it ends up creating something pretty stark and harsh looking. So this isn't white, what we're about to add now. This is a light gray, and I've wiped off my brush and I'm applying it with the same brush and just working directly over the top, and same principle applies. We're working over some of these darker areas here so that we get that pop of contrast. But what can happen is we can pick up a lot of that dark color, so our light positive marks that we're adding over the top can pick up a little bit of that darker tone. So reload your brush, continue to reload the brush, and use some paint, for goodness sake. Get some paint out there, fella. So a bit of Crimnance white there, a bit of burnt umber, that'll help. And see how it just breaks up that trunk a little bit and gives us a little bit more of feeling of texture here with this tree. So it can't all be dark. Lighten up, they say. Add a bit more titanium white there. The reflection of the trunk on the tree doesn't match the left side. Well, you know what? Maybe I just did that on purpose, Danielle. Maybe I was just testing to see if you were paying attention. And clearly you are. So, well done. Well done. I was going to have to give everybody detention there for a second. But no, that has been successfully avoided. So let's get in there, work back into the water. Now, our Olivia, the one and only Olivia Montgomery, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this on the live stream, but I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you. But Olivia does stand-up comedy, and I would never do such a thing because I would get heckled out the wazoo. I know I would. That, and I know I'm a laugh a minute, but I'm really not that funny. Really, I think I'm hilarious, but I think that's a dangerous sign because I'm really not, and so I'd probably just get up there and bomb. But I just want to say to stand-up comics out there, you should try painting live. The heckling can be brutal. I don't like it. I taught a class. I got to tell you this quick story. I taught a class many years ago when I was doing live workshops, and yeah, I had this one lady in there, and let's just say, those Simpson characters, I can't remember, Selma and Patty, I think are the aunties' names in The Simpsons, and they chain smoke, and they grunt, and they're just generally awful people, these two characters out of The Simpsons. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah, well, one day I had Selma rock up to a workshop. She was so husky from all the Winnie Blues. So husky, but unmistakable. And I remember putting the brushes down on this demo, and everybody was a bit quiet. And okay, the demo wasn't that great, but all I heard from the background was just this, "I don't like it." I was like, well, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you'd like me to do about that, but it was just so, I've never come across it before, and I never have since. That was just weird. Anyway, I guess you had to be there, but it was funny. But just that character, man. Maybe she's here. Maybe she's here. And if she is, I'd like to apologize to Karen for that one. But anyway, does that match a little better? Does that match a little better? Anyway, we got branches on one side, we got branches on the other side. We'll put in a few more. We'll get this to match. But by the way, when we're talking about reflections, and we're looking at reflections in the water, they're not going to match perfectly. And the reason why is because we have to take into account our vantage point, right? So we are actually in the reflection looking up at the object that's being reflected. This is why at this angle of reflection, we can't see a reflection of this bank because we're standing on the bank looking across it. So we're looking across the face of that grassy slope. Does that make sense? We're going to do more breakdown on reflection because it's such a cool thing to put into your landscape paintings. There'll be a little bit of reflection. I'll break up this edge just a little bit, the edge of that water. All right. Lori says, Andrew, I can't even imagine how you juggle all of this and manage to paint it all. Never met anyone who can juggle as well as you. Hey, Trey reckons you're calling me a clown. You calling me a clown, Lori? I might be too much of a clown here, Lori. Well, I hope they're helpful at the very least. I hope that these lessons, that you've picked up something today that you're able to take into one of your painting demonstrations. I think the painting's turning out okay. Okay. It's okay. You know, it's not my best work. It's not something that I think is going to win me any friends over there at the Epic Painters Guild of Massachusetts. I don't think that's a thing. I imagine somewhere that there's just this group. Well, there is in the U.S. Like, well, Michael Klein, he's got something pretty cool going on. I think he'd look at this painting and tell me, "No, dude, we can't be buddies. You're not there yet." But I'm having fun. I'm having fun working on this one. I'll continue to work on this a bit more, put a bit more into it. But hopefully you can see how I would start, how I think about my work, how I'd start making these moves. A little bit of a broken limb there, just falling into the creek. I can see that, a little bit of evidence of that in my photograph. We'll go ahead and put a bit of that in. I like some of those details to make it a little bit more natural, you know, mess up the landscape just a little bit. And I like some of this tannin color that's coming out of our creek. But before we go, I want to put in just a few of these. There's a few rocks and shapes here. So we'll paint these in only in the red area where we can see the actual color of the water. So the red area is the reflection of our tree, but it's actually what's happening is the tree is canceling out the light that's being reflected out of that sky, and the sunlight that's shining into our body of water is taking over. And so it's bouncing off the bottom of that body of water, and so now we're able to see the stones being stained by all those rich manuka tannins that are in that water. Maybe they call them tea trees because they stain that water tea colored. But this is one of my favorite colors is that tannin color in a landscape. It just brings a brilliant, beautiful pop of red. And this landscape desperately needs the red, doesn't it? I think it needs that red. The reason being is that we've got so much green. How on earth are we going to have some color balance here and some harmony without a little bit of that red in there? Me and my plein air painters that are coming to the South Island and going to be painting with me outside, we're going to be parking up next to some babbling brooks, surrounded by some majestic peaks, and we're gonna have a go at painting some of this stuff from life. We won't be in the Lawrence area. You guys are gonna be, you know, front row seats to the best landscape on the planet, in my opinion. It might be beautiful where you are. I get that. I appreciate that. I just think that it's world class down here in New Zealand. There's a reason for a long time there, New Zealand was rated one of the top tourist destinations in the world. It's just so dang beautiful. There's a reason they filmed Lord of the Rings down here. It's just too beautiful. It's too dang beautiful. It looks like a movie. It's not even real. Well, I think I've gone over time now. I think we've done the do. If you haven't got your question answered, go ahead and hit me up again real quick. Let's try and get to it before we round this thing out. QQQ from Andrew Pugh. Andrew Pugh from Christchurch. How you doing, brother? Did you receive the brushes? Let me know. Did you receive your prize, grand prize winner in the house from our Paint FOMO painting competition? We'll be running one of those again here in the very near future with more prizes and giveaways. So Andrew's got a question. When you do a grisaille, what factors go into making that decision? Well, I think it comes down to the approach. Again, we started this thing off, we were talking about a concept called beginning with the end in mind. What type of resolve, finish, or surface would you like to achieve? And so sometimes we need to take a technical approach that brings out the best attribute of our subject, but also kind of highlights it in a particular way and has a particular technique or aesthetic. So for instance, I did a grisaille for a portrait that I did of my darling wife. And I did a bistre first, and then I went in with a grisaille. If you're not familiar with those terms, we'll talk about them some more, but you can find that in my portraits workshop that's available on my website. I'm pretty sure we got a code working across the board for that website. So if I don't have it working, just wait for Jim to get back. He'll be back on Monday, but I think we have Academy 25 for 25% off the checkout on the website. But check out the Portraits Workshop. Now that is, that's on my website, so it's not here on the Academy, but I did a portrait of Rachel. You can find a shorter version on YouTube on my channel. But I wanted a fine, delicate approach to that painting and some real details, some real resolve there, something that was realistic, but at the same time had a slight painterly quality, kind of Renaissance, kind of Dutch. So I was playing with a few things. So it just made sense to go with that real old world approach. And that's why I went ahead and did a grisaille underpainting and then laid in very delicate glazes of color. So it really does depend on what it is that you're painting. That one, I think it worked for that painting. I generally don't do a grisaille though, but I did enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I might have to do some more for some demos here on the Academy. A few little blades of grass. We're not quite there yet. I really want some highlights in this tree. I'm using a fan fugly number 3, beg your pardon. So this is a fan that got dragged behind the school lockers and beaten to a pulp. And then we held him down and cut his hair. And then we basically flushed his head. And he ended up looking like that. So now that this brush has been thoroughly traumatized, we're now going to use it for some really nice technique here for broken marks up here in the canopy of our willow tree. Now we can overdo this. It can look a little bit like a 70s sponge painting, dab, 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 creating order and pattern where we might not want to see that. So just pay attention to that. But here, a couple little broken marks along the lead edge might help this willow tree just come out a little bit. Just catching the sun there, fella. Just a little bit lighter. Allow some of that underpainting to come through. But I think I'm going to have to continue to work with this as it dries. We're getting there. We're getting there. I need some fuglies. Short for friggin' ugly. Morning, Raleigh. How are you? That's all right. The best part of the party, Raleigh, is the last 5 minutes. And I think this is what they call being fashionably late. You just arrived exactly on time. So, well done. Well done. You're here for the best bit. The rest of the people had to suffer through all of the fugly stages of my painting, but you're here for the best bit. Oh, 1 second. Just need to mute the mic real quick. Hang on. All right. So you can see now, hopefully, how we're bringing this together, and hopefully you've come away with something. But what have we really essentially talked about here? Well, bringing it back to where we started, this is a study for a bigger painting, and it's a study of a theme and an idea. I'm thinking about my technique, I'm thinking about my approach. The technique in this painting will be a layered technique, but I'm dealing with the subject, I'm dealing with colors, I'm dealing with tone, and I'm really paying attention to what do I love? What is it about this type of scene that I love? And so, beginning with the end in mind, I recognize for this very special project that I have to work on that it's going to take several studies to be able to work it out. So that's where we started. So here in this painting, I'm thinking about process all the time and building up the painting, but I'm thinking about how to create that depth. And so we've talked about that and talked about the different considerations when it comes to painting. Right now, hit me up in order, all 12 of the considerations in the chat right now. Have you been paying attention? Have you? What are all 12 of the considerations? So with those considerations in mind, I'm trying to create that depth. And it all comes down to a point of difference between what do we mix to apply that shadow right there for that willow tree in the distance versus what the heck are we doing with this one in the foreground? Now, yes, we need more finesse, absolutely. We need some detail up in here, but I really wanted to create something that was a little more painterly today, and I want to keep with the painterly vibe. So I'll continue to work with this with a bit of looseness. We couple that with a little bit of detail. I think that'll work out all right. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Boom, Irene has got it in the house. Line and shape, tone, color, edge, form, depth, light, material, time, space, mood, and story. Irene, no one's gonna beat that. You're first. There you go, look at that. Tish Fuglies, I don't think Rosemary and Co are gonna stalk the Tish Fuglies there, so they might. If they know what they're doing, they will. Let's clear this out of the way. Here we go. Here we go. Here is our painting. It's just a wee little fella. Let's go ahead and move this, center this up a little bit. Excuse me, sorry. And you can see here, there's actually nothing going on. But all in a couple hours of work. Now again, we can continue to work with this, continue to tease things out and work with the details. Thank you, Nettie, appreciate that. Look, enjoyed your company here so much. Thank you for being in the studio. If I missed your question, I'm so sorry, but we've gone over half an hour now. And so that's going to do it for this live stream. Now, a couple of things to just get out the way really quickly. So we're a man down, and we're a captain down. So Jim Fairburn he's kind of head honcho around here. He's the only one that I'm going to let yell at me. So Jim has kind of taken on this role of COO here now, and he's really running a tight ship with all of this stuff. So he knows how to upload the videos and create the courses and the modules and all that stuff. He's incredibly technical, and the rest of us are just trying to work it out. He's gone away for a little short vacation. He's going to be back first thing on Monday. If you got any tech support issues, he will be back Monday. Don't worry, hang tight, we'll get it all sorted. If we can get him on the phone today, I'm gonna get him to walk us through how to upload this dang module, because this painting, I'm so happy with it. Can I just quickly, can I show you the painting? It's finished. I can put it right here. I can show you can I show you the painting before we go? I want to show you this painting. Show and tell. Don't go anywhere. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm gonna move this. I'm gonna move you back. There you go. You chill for a second. I'll move you back. I'm gonna move my iPad down. There we go. That can go over there. Okay, great. Are we okay? We're not gonna, you're right there? Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this rig here, and then we'll go ahead and, yeah, we'll do it. Okay. And then I gotta move this screen too. Everything's hanging off my wall easel. All right, here we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. And we'll get this other painting in here and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. I can't wait to share this with you. So I really hope we get to upload it today. Otherwise, it'll be with you next week. So just hang tight. But this is epic. So you're gonna have access very shortly to the full version. Well, I say full version, a 5-hour version of this. We are gonna spend some weeks and cut a full, I'll just focus on my cameras. We're gonna take some weeks and cut a full, like 12-hour version that's gonna be on the website, but you're gonna get an overview of the entire process here as an Academy member. Let me just get this adjusted. It's only a 24 by 36, but it's vertical. And I just posted a short snippet of this over on the Academy page, but do you guys remember this painting? My OGs will know exactly what this is. So here it is, finished. And this was the result of me getting a critique from my members here. At the time we were on Patreon. We've now gone independent and we've now got our own website, right? That's what you are watching now through, well, you're on YouTube, but you found this link through the Academy, right? So this is a painting. And this is, we call it Icy River Cascade. That's my working title. I still don't have a title, but for my Queenslanders, you guys will appreciate this. So it's entirely invented, right? But the waterfall was inspired by a waterfall that is at a place called Goshen Station, which is in far north Queensland. And it was where they filmed the first ever Survivor, Australian Survivor. I think that was won by a guy named Richard Hatch. But this is going back years and years and years, maybe 20, 25 years ago. I don't know when they brought out the first Survivor. But anyway, that's where that waterfall was inspired from, but essentially the rest of it was inspired by New Zealand. I just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And it's mostly an inspired, New Zealand inspired scene, but totally imaginary. And what happened is I submitted my design to my students and they were like, hey, you change this, change that. And I did it. And I think for a collaborative effort, it came out all right. I'm happy with it. For everybody that gave me a testimonial, a video testimonial, who's been waiting for a print, this is it. I'm doing a special run just for you, and I'm gonna send you one of these embossed and hand-signed. It's gonna be on the way very soon. I'm getting it photographed for that print. That's gonna happen week after next. So it's all booked. It's gonna get a coat of retouch varnish. But this is, there you go. Yeah, so I am getting time to paint. Yes, Lori, I am getting time to paint. So this thing here, I just realized my Sony ZV isn't even on. There you go, so you can't see me. I'm looking at the little dang camera and you can't see me. So this here is the next work. So we've got a complete breakdown for you over 3 videos. The first installment is the block-in, and it's completely narrated. It comes in about an hour long. All up, the total series is 5 hours long, and it's going all the way from blocking in all the way through to final glazing. If you want to know about glazing a painting, we talk about it here. So this one was all about glazing, and again, it comes down to I want to get into it now. I'm going to start on another tangent, but there's a few technical aspects you got to have worked out with the glazing, and we're going to talk about it here. But anyway, just want to give you a heads up. I'm really excited about this, and I was hoping to get it to you today, but we're just going to struggle with the technical stuff. We'll put in a few hours on this, and if we can't work it out, we'll just have to wait until Jim gets back on Monday. Anyway, this has been fun. I just want to say a huge thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the Tisch Academy. Thank you for joining this live stream, our biggest live stream ever so far. So thanks so much for being here. I hope you come away with something. We'll see you again next week, potentially next week, 5-hour live stream. I know, it's crazy. We'll start at 7 a.m. We'll keep going through. We'll see how many people last the full 5 hours. I'm going to give it a go next week. If we can't swing it next week, we'll try the week after, but I'll certainly let you know. Okay, this has been fun. Thanks so much. We'll see you again in the next one. All right.